Hey guys, welcome back to more homeowner association stories. In this video, a ridiculous HOA president towed my car to teach me a lesson, even though I am not part of this HOA. Let's dive right into the video. Am I the a-hole for refusing to add 50 square feet to my house and taking the HOA to court over it? For context, I've lived in my house since 1995. It's a modest 1050 square foot home built in 1989 in what was originally a nice quiet neighborhood without an HOA. The trouble started about 3 months ago when I received a certified letter from our neighborhood's HOA board stating that my house was in violation of community standards because it did not meet the minimum square footage requirement of 1800 square feet. The letter demanded that I either add an extension to bring the house up to code or face daily fines of $100. I was completely blindsided by this. Our HOA was only established in 2004, 15 years after my house was built. When they first formed, I had reviewed their bylaws and confirmed with my lawyer that my house would be grandfathered in since it predated the HOA. I had this in writing. I tried reaching out to the HOA board president, let's call her Karen, not her real name, to discuss this reasonably. The conversation went something like this. Me, I don't understand why this is coming up now. My house predates the HOA. Karen, the rules are the rules. Every house needs to meet minimum standards to maintain property values. You've had plenty of time to comply. Me, but I have documentation showing that my house was specifically grandfathered in when the HOA formed. Karen, that was the old board. We have reviewed the bylaws and determined that grandfather clauses don't apply to square footage requirements. You have 60 days to submit renovation plans or the fines will begin. I was floored by her dismissive attitude. Adding 50 square feet would cost tens of thousands of dollars and require major construction, all for essentially no practical benefit. When I pointed this out, she suggested I take out a home equity loan if I couldn't afford it. I decided to consult with my lawyer again. He reviewed everything and confirmed that my house should absolutely still be grandfathered in. He sent a formal letter to the HOA board explaining their legal error and requesting that they withdraw their demand. Instead of backing down, they doubled down. They sent back a response threatening to place a lien on my house if I didn't comply. At this point, my lawyer advised me that we needed to file for an injunction to prevent them from actually taking action against me while we fought this in court. The day after we filed, Karen and 2 other board members showed up at my door unannounced. The conversation went like this. Karen, we are very disappointed that you've chosen to be difficult about this. Legal action will be expensive for everyone involved. Why can't you just follow the rules like everyone else? Well, me, because these rules didn't exist when my house was built, and you know that. I'm not spending $50,000 on unnecessary construction just because you've decided to retroactively apply new standards. Board member 2, but think about the property values. Your tiny house brings down the whole neighborhood. Me, my house is not tiny. It's 1,750 square feet. And it was here long before any of you moved in. Karen, well, if you cannot afford to maintain appropriate standards, maybe this is not the right neighborhood for you. That last comment really got under my skin. I've lived here longer than any of them. My kids grew up in this house. I'm not wealthy, but I maintain my home meticulously. The only thing wrong with it is that it is 50 square feet smaller than they would like. The next few weeks were stressful. Several neighbors told me the board had been bad-mouthing me at their meetings, claiming I was supposedly bringing down property values and refusing to maintain community standards. A few stopped speaking to me entirely, but others reached out privately to offer support. It turned out the board had been increasingly aggressive about enforcing arbitrary rules, and many people were fed up but afraid to speak out. One neighbor, who had served on the original HOA board, even gave me copies of old meeting minutes that explicitly discussed grandfathering in existing homes. When we finally got to court, the HOA's lawyer tried to argue that community standards could be updated at any time and applied retroactively. But the judge was not having it. She specifically asked them, are you suggesting that if the HOA decided tomorrow that all houses must be at least 3,000 square feet, every homeowner would be required to immediately begin construction? Their lawyer stumbled trying to explain why that would be different. The judge then reviewed the original HOA formation documents, which clearly stated that existing structures would be exempt from new size requirements unless they underwent major renovation. The best part was when Karen took the stand and tried to claim that they were not targeting me specifically, but were reviewing all properties for compliance. My lawyer presented evidence showing that there were actually 6 other houses in the neighborhood under 1,800 square feet, but mine was the only one that had received violation notices. Well, after about 2 hours of testimony, the judge ruled decisively in my favor. She issued a permanent injunction preventing the HOA from trying to enforce the square footage requirement on my property and ordered them to pay my legal fees. She also gave them a stern lecture about abusing HOA authority and trying to retroactively apply rules. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen and her allies on the board were not done yet. They started nitpicking every tiny detail about my property. I got violation notices for a flower bed bordering being 2 inches too high, my grass being a 1/4 inch over regulation height, having a bird feeder visible from the street, Christmas lights still up on January 2nd, and a suspicious gathering when my kids came over for a barbecue. Each time I simply responded by citing the judge's ruling about harassment and copying my lawyer. Eventually, other homeowners got fed up too. At the next board election, Karen and most of her supporters were voted out. The new board has been much more reasonable. The real karma came last month when Karen put her house on the market. Turns out all those dire warnings about property values were projection. Her house is only 1,850 square feet, barely over the minimum she tried to enforce on me. And she's having trouble selling because potential buyers are put off by how restrictive the HOA has become under her leadership. I know I was legally in the right, but some neighbors still say that I should have just kept the peace and found a way to add the extra square footage. They say I've created bad feelings in the neighborhood by taking things to court. My wife supports me, but thinks I could have handled it more diplomatically. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to expand my house and taking the HOA to court instead? Additional info, yes, I still have copies of all the original grandfather clause documentation. Always keep your paperwork. Total legal fees were around $15,000, which the HOA had to reimburse. Several neighbors have now requested copies of my lawyer's contact information. And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this one. Was OP the a-hole for doing this or not? A user in the comments said, not the a-hole. HOAs are notorious for power trips like this. You did exactly the right thing by standing your ground and getting a legal ruling to protect yourself. If you had given in, they would have just found new ways to harass you. Comment number 2, everyone sucks here. The HOA was clearly overstepping, but taking them to court was nuclear. You could have proposed a compromise like adding a sunroom or expanding your patio, but now everyone's property values are affected because potential buyers see that we got a contentious HOA. Comment number 3, you're the a-hole. Houses need to keep up with modern standards. Would you be okay if someone kept a 900 square feet shack in your neighborhood? The same principle applies here. The HOA is trying to maintain quality of life for everyone. Comment number 4, you're the a-hole. I serve on my HOA board and we have similar rules. They exist to protect everyone's investments. If you cannot afford to maintain appropriate standards, you should consider moving to a neighborhood more within your means. And yeah guys, these damn elitist HOA board members. Really the most lovable people on earth. Anyway, the next one is titled HOA President Towed My Car to Teach Me a Lesson. To give some background for this story before I explain it all, it began a little over 6 months ago. I was visiting a friend out of town, let's call her Larissa for now. She lived in an HOA. She would always tell about how her and her neighbors would get together for game nights or dinners at one of their places. They were a great group of people. Anyway, every 2 or 3 weeks I would get a call from Larissa telling me about the crazy new things her HOA president would do. I'm talking about the incredible, petty, despicable and annoying things like telling people their grass had grown too long a day after it was cut, telling them to remove their decorations at Halloween or Christmas because it ruined the appeal of the neighborhood. Anything he could do to flex his power and inflate his fragile ego. Well, the day came when I went to visit Larissa. Of course, on this very same day, Mr. Justin, the HOA president, decided that he needed to get a fix for his ego. Experiencing it firsthand was something Larissa or I had never experienced. As Larissa told me, most of the neighbors were either too nice or too scared to stand up to him directly, so he reigned supreme over this little community. It was late at night when I got to her place. She told me about the visitor parking spot at the end of the complex and told me to make absolutely sure I was parking in the right spot. And so I did. The spot had the visitor parking sign, so I knew I was good. I locked my car and headed up to Larissa's place. Now at this point I was not sure what Justin looked like. All I knew about him was his reputation, so walking up to Larissa's place I noticed a little white car racing past me with a bald fat little gremlin in the driver's seat scowling. They turned sharply into the parking lot and I didn't think much of it at the time. Everyone has bad days, I know I have. Me and Larissa ended up having a great night, catching up and sharing a few drinks with the neighbors. Well, things flew off the rails in the morning. I woke up to drive home and I was helping my brother move today, so I had to head out early. Walking out to my car, I noticed the same little white car idling at the end of the street, far enough back that they thought they didn't look suspicious, but close enough to have a good view of the entire complex and area. I furrowed my brow at the strange sight, but assumed that they were also heading out early for work, and I turned the corner, expecting to see my car, but instead there was an empty parking spot staring back at me. Immediately, I felt butterflies in my stomach. I knew something was wrong. Just in case I was going crazy, I double-checked myself, ensuring I didn't see my car anywhere else, but nope, this was the spot. I stared confused, trying to will my car back into existence where it used to be. This is when I noticed a slip of paper stuffed under the parking curb. It stated, "To whom it may concern, your vehicle has been towed from the premises as it violated HOA rules that are set in place." According to HOA Article 13 subsection 2 paragraph B, all vehicles must be parked in their designated parking locations. The owner of this vehicle chose to violate this rule and as such it has been removed. Signed by HOA President Justin. I stared blankly at the slip of paper in my hand. Something else is missing from the scene here. I rack my brain trying to remember and then it hits me. The sign has been removed. The one outlining the spot I was in as a visitor parking spot was removed. Or had it? I distinctly remember there being one when I pulled into this spot. No, I'm actually certain there was. I feel like I'm being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck go rigid. I glance around searching for the eyes on me. I'm at them. In the white car, I lock eyes with the gremlin. And splattered across his face is a grin. A grin one would make after eating a big meal, fully satisfied. Our eyes narrowed at one another before he calmly pulled his car and drove off and casually left me standing in the parking lot like a fool. I'm already on the move back to Larissa's place. My belly is full of fire and brimstone. I burst through her door. She is only just now rolling out of bed, her hair's a mess and sipping on a mug of coffee larger than her head. But with one look from one another, she understands that something has gone down. With no words being spoken, she retreats back into her room to get dressed. Back outside now, I fill her in on what happened. She informed me that the gremlin in question is the legendary Mr. Justin. At the end of the block is a small square building. HOA office written largely on a sign out front, a familiar white car parked outside. I scoff as we approach the car that is carelessly parked in two spots. Larissa grabs my arm and tells me to slow down. I pull it away, pushing in the small office door with maximum gusto. The door swings hard and slams into the opposite wall. Inside, I am appalled at his decorating choices. In the opposite corner, a far too large L-shaped desk sits dominating the room. There are no other chairs in the room and I'm sure he doesn't get many visitors. Larissa follows in far more cautiously and she catches the door, allowing it to close softly. Justin and I lock eyes and behind him I see a look of excitement like, he's been waiting for this moment all day. He turns in his chair, folding his hands on the desk and speaks calmly and evenly. "Hey ladies, is there something I can help you with?" "Yes, Justin, there's something you can help me with." I respond quickly, folding my arms across my chest. "You can help by explaining where the hell my car is." His face twists as he tries to contain a smile from spreading across his face. "Oh, you mean the one that was illegally parked in my parking lot? I'm sure you know that all HOA members are to park in their designated parking spots," he retorts, holding his nose high. "Justin, I'm not even a part of your stupid HOA and I parked in the designated visitor spot," I reply, pointing out the window in the direction of where the parking spot was. I watch as his resolve cracks. He shifts his weight uncomfortably and grips the side of the desk. Trying to regain control of the situation, he responds, "I'm sure at the time you parked there it said visitor, but this is my parking lot and I decide when a spot is no longer meant for visitors or for residents." He scoffs, "In fact, you're lucky I didn't have your car towed sooner." He ruffled some papers beside him on his desk and pulls out a receipt and purposely slides it off of his desk. It falters to my feet. "That is the invoice for the tow truck, by the way. They are expecting to be paid by the end of the day today." He shoots a sadistic grin my way. I spin on my heels, grabbing Larissa by the arm, making sure to twist my heel into the paper, crumbling and ripping it. We leave the office, Larissa trailing behind. She keeps nervously glancing backwards at the building as if it's gonna get up and chase us down. Justin had no idea who he was messing with. Me and Larissa hop into her car and head off to the towing company. And sure enough, when we pulled up, I saw my car behind their fenced lot. I had a brief conversation with the manager, who shrugged his shoulders and apologized, outlining that they were just doing their jobs. Begrudgingly, I understood and paid the fee of $500, an outrageous fee I might add. This only fueled me further. I was ready to get my money back directly from Justin. The rest of the day was spent digging for as much dirt as possible, and we started with the neighbors. Talking with one, he said he had a dash cam in his car the night my car was towed. What we found was, on that recording of Justin, the gremlin waiting till late in the night to slip over and remove the visitor parking sign. The video showed him tossing it back behind a tool shed. I went out to look, and beyond there it was, half-heartedly hidden, covered by some grass and cardboard. Another neighbor, Claire, told us that her husband was a contractor who had done some work for Justin on his house. Justin paid them in cash. The cash was made up of smaller notes like $5 or $10 bills, and lots of them. We figured that Justin was using the money he was collecting from the fines on the HOA members and using it on his own home. I grinned wickedly at this discovery. As luck would have it, there was a HOA meeting tomorrow where Justin and the other members of the HOA board would be present. I barely slept at night. The excitement to see this terrain torn down was not something I gotta do every day. We showed up at the meeting. Coming through the doors, we see Justin shaking hands with some of the other members until we lock eyes and his smile wavers. His eyes darted from my folder to me, and I could see the fear in his eyes. After some pointless introductions and announcements of some rule changes, I stood up and said, "Good morning, board members. I'm here with my friend Larissa, who's a member of your HOA. I, on the other hand, am not, but I've been affected by a gross abuse of power by one of your members, Mr. Justin." All eyes are on Justin now. His face begins to go red, looks like he's about to pop. Justin bottled to his feet. "Young lady, I will have you know this meeting is for members only." I stride up to the front of the room, handing the folder over. It contains pictures from the dashcam of him removing the sign, a copy of the tow truck invoice, and receipts from Claire's husband's renovation company. As the board members began to gather around the documents, they were shocked. Their eyes moved from the paper to Justin. He was furious, staring a hole right through me. I turned my back, not feeling the need to stew here. My job was done. I could hear Justin shouting at the other members, demanding they throw the folder out. That it was all supposedly lies. I could hear snickering from the other people in the room at the feeble meltdown Justin was having. In the coming days, Larissa told me that Justin had just been reduced to maintenance and that his role was given to another wonderful young woman. I later received an apology letter from the HOA together with a check for $1,000. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I shot a guy who repeatedly trespassed on my property and threatened my kids and wife. So there was a guy that just seemed obsessed with showing up on my property, and by the time police would come, he was always gone. There was not much they could do but take a statement with his description and keep a lookout. They could not station somebody at my house 24/7 to wait for him to randomly show up again. He didn't have anything super defining about him and looked just like a generic kind of guy. I do believe, based on his mannerisms and later when I spoke to him, that he was on drugs or something. And most likely breaking into homes to steal things to pawn to get money for more drugs. I don't know what about my house specifically seemed so enticing to him, but it did. Usually when he showed up it would be later in the day, and honestly, it was not even like he was trying to break in most of the time. He would just walk around the property for a while and then leave on his own or when I would shout at him. Always before police came, no matter how sneaky I was trying to be, so he just seemed to know. This went on for a couple of months until one day everything changed. He showed up during the day, which was odd, and I was outside with my family since it was a nice day. I saw him walk onto my property, and by this time I was sick and tired of his crap. Me, get the hell off my property. I told you that I called the police on you and to stay the hell away. Man, I just need something to Me, leave me alone, leave my family alone. Just go away and stay away. Man, no respect, man, no respect. Me, I'm not gonna respect you. You clearly don't respect me. I'm calling the cops again. Man, you don't wanna F with me. Call the cops on me, I'll make sure to kill them pretty girls real good. He walked away after that, but I was beyond angry. He took things way too far by threatening my wife and daughters. He also mentioned doing another act to them that I did not want to add direct wording for, mainly wanted to show how broken and messed up his talking was and that he seemed to be on something even though it was about noon. Even though he left, I was told by police to always report what happened, to add to the ongoing report and have a paper trail. I did that, but it just didn't feel good enough. I saw the police not able to do a damn thing and he had threatened my family. I decided that I was done just sitting and waiting for the problem to get solved slowly. I knew that he was eventually coming back, and when he did, I was ending things once and for all. I heard a window trying to be opened during the night about a week and a half later and knew this was my opportunity. He was trying to break in which he sucked at, by the way. He would just see if a window or door was unlocked and then just wander around for a while before leaving. This time I ran downstairs and brought my gun with me. I know this doesn't apply everywhere, but I live in a stand your ground state. Meaning for this case, if somebody is breaking into your house, you are allowed to defend yourself with a gun. I went outside and pointed it at him. Me, you're done here. Done. Man, nah, see, I was just going to see my dude's house, and like you know how it is. Me, shut the hell up for once. You threatened my family and then think it's smart to come back and break into my house? He was getting mad, but so was I, so it seemed even. Now I just want to say that I didn't go into this with the intention to actually shoot him. I figured he would see the gun and run away for good this time. I didn't count on him being dumb enough to try and puff out his chest at me. He told me yet again that he was going to hurt my family, and my body kind of reacted on its own. I pulled the trigger and shot him right in the shoulder. He was on the ground in seconds, rolling around and screaming. He was also looking around for the shooter, as if he forgot that I was pointing a gun at him and everything. He must have been out of his mind from whatever he took. The police were called, and this time they arrived and saw the man they had been trying to catch for 2 months. He was screaming for help and that he had been shot by the police. Making no sense as usual, I'm being arrested for repeated counts of trespassing and theft. The theft being that he did manage when he first started to steal from me a few times, but it was never anything major. This guy was probably the world's worst thief, and how he was never caught before was shocking to me. I was terrified that I was also gonna get arrested for shooting somebody, but the cops assured me that I was protecting my home and family and was fine. They would just need to take statements and do a ton of paperwork to have this entire thing sorted. He was also being charged with drug possession once they searched him and did a test to see that he was on a bunch of illegal things. He was most likely going to prison with the evidence the police had against him. I had a ton of emotions going through me and cannot remember half of what the police told me that night. I was happy and in disbelief that the entire thing was over and I didn't need to worry about him coming onto my property anymore. Honestly, I was shocked that I actually managed to pull the trigger and shoot him. I was just a total mess once the adrenaline wore off and I realized everything. They told me I might need to speak in court, but he would most likely plead guilty with all the evidence they had against him. Edit, a lot of you were asking me if I had security cameras set up or why I didn't. I forgot to mention it in the original post, but I did get security cameras to be able to show the police what the guy did. The issue just never was the fact that they couldn't see what he looked like. It was the fact that he looked like hundreds of other guys, and he was never there when the police showed up. The videos would have been good if you wanted to take the case to court though. Edit number 2, I found out after posting that he did plead guilty and was going to prison for theft, trespassing and drugs. I was also asked about getting the money back from things he stole. There was no point in a civil lawsuit because he had no money or assets for me to win. He never stole anything too expensive, and even if he did, my insurance would have covered it. Him being gone was really the only thing I cared about, since I never knew if he was just gonna snap one day and do something crazy to my family. Before we end the video, we will read a funny news story from r/pettyrevenge. It is titled, "Don't clean the kitchen? Well, guess supper will be very late then." I have teenagers and a hubby who works from home. I work a demanding job with fairly long hours, but I don't mind cooking when I get back as I enjoy it and can whip up a meal in under 20 minutes if I need to. So the deal is, I will cook and hubby and kids get cleanup duty. The problem is that they are all extremely messy and are not at all bothered by a dirty, messy kitchen, whereas a dirty kitchen is the one thing that really upsets me. So after a long hard day at work, I would get back to a filthy dirty kitchen and have to clean it before I could start cooking. I got tired of nagging and screaming, it just elevated my stress levels, so I would get some food at work, arrive home, sit on the couch and read my book. After a while, someone would ask what was for supper. I would say, I don't know, I cannot really do much in a dirty kitchen. And carry on reading my book. I would not end up cooking that evening, as it got too late and everyone else would have to have cheese on toast, much to their disgust. So now when I get home, the kitchen is spotless and the dishwasher is on. Problem solved. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow. And don't forget to clean your dirty dishes.